Namaste, everyone. Thank you for joining again. Today we are here. Today we are back at Hindustan Republican Global. As we know, Hindustan Republican is a global movement aimed at preservation of the heritage of the Krantikaris and the INA, along with bringing and promoting retired army personnel into public leadership opportunities inclusive of political roles. Historically, Hindustan Republican Association was founded by Krantikari Pandit Ram Prasad Bismil and operationalized by Sri Sachendranath Sanyal at Varanasi. Today we are here to discuss on the topic revolutionaries versus moderates, ideals, actions, and the role of secret societies in shaping change. To discuss this important topic, we have with us speaker Dr. Raja Bhumikji. Let me introduce you. Let me introduce you all to Speaker Dr. Raja Bhumik. Dr. Raja Bhumik is a medical doctor specializing in medicine, diabetology, nephrology, and critical care. Hails from West Bengal but has been settled in Hyderabad since 1985. After completing his education in Hyderabad, Dr. Bhumik has dedicated his career to serving the healthcare community, both Hyderabad and Secunderabad, I guess. Yeah. So beyond his medical practice, Dr. Bhumek has always been deeply fascinated by the Indian freedom movement and the world wars. His passion for history grew over time, and during the lockdown, he's decided to give shape to this interest. This led him to write his first book, Journey to India's Freedom from 1858 to 1948, An Untold Story, a comprehensive account chronicling the various events that led to the transfer of power in August 1947. In this book, Dr. Bhumik sheds light on the often overcooked revolutionaries who played a pivotal role in India's freedom struggle, presenting them as the unsung heroes they truly were. Dr. Bhumik will share his insights into the Indian freedom movement, focusing on the differences between the revolutionaries and the moderates and the significant role secret societies played in shaping India's fight for freedom. Namaste, Dr. Bhumik ji. Thank you for being here. The platform is all yours. So if you can carry the platform forward.
It's my pleasure. Good evening, Namaste, Jai Hind. It is my pleasure to be a part of this August group, and I am here to, as already addressed to by Mr. Anand, I am here to highlight the role which were played by the revolutionaries, who I feel were the unsung heroes of the Indian freedom movement. To start with, we must understand the background under which the Indian National Congress came into being. In 1857, part of the reason for the revolt of 1857, or rather the first war of Indian independence, to take shape in 1857 was the disillusionment amongst the Indians about the various anti-people activities which were taken up by the East India Company. If we divide the history of India under the British, it can be divided into two parts. Number one, that is the era before that is the period prior to the first war of independence in 1857 and subsequent to that. Now, the events of 1857 actually underline the fact that the East India Company were actually out of tune, or rather out of sync with with the aspirations of the Indians, as a result of which they undertook a lot of steps which were not appreciated by the Indians. However, there was a significant disconnect between the people of the East Indian Company and also the Indians, which over a period of time led to disillusionment and set into motion a series of actions, a series of activities that culminated in the First War of Independence. The British were lucky that they were able to wrest power at the, by May of 1857, and after that it was the British Parliament under the Crown, under the control of the Crown, who took over the administration. At the very outset, the Queen Victoria, in a proclamation in 1858, declared that the British will now rule India as per the aspirations of the people and will not interfere in the personal activities, including their religious beliefs. However, over a period of time, the British did adopt certain anti-people activities, one of which was, for example, the Vernacular Act, on the basis of which they forbade they forbid the publication of any articles which they felt were anti-British. Also, the vernacular and also the Arms Act, on the basis of which they prohibited any of the these are the non-Britishers from acquiring and possessing any arms. As a result of which, the Indians, they consider themselves to be at the mercy of at the mercy of the British. Now, this being the case, the British now realized that in order to avoid a situation which was similar to the one which was prevailing prior to 1857, they needed to be in touch with the with the mood of the public. And it was on this particular plan, rather, that the British under Lord Dufferin as the uh, sorry, and under the inspiration of certain British civil servants, especially A.O. Hume and others, that the Indian National Congress was ultimately formed in 1885 in Bombay. The British considered the formation of the Indian National Congress as as a sort of a safety valve through which they could establish a platform through which the aspirations of the Indians could be aired, on the basis of which various policies could be framed by the British with uh, keeping keeping the interests of the British as the uppermost in their mind. However, over a period of time, through certain individuals, especially, for example, Mr. Ramesh Chandra Datta or Mr. Dinshaw Vacha, it came to be realized that the rule of the Britishers were not in the interest of the Indians. However, we must appreciate the fact that in the beginning, most of the members of the Indian National Congress were drawn from the elite, that is, the educated people who were mostly lawyers and journalists. Unfortunately, this group of people, they were of the opinion that British rule was good for the Indian society, and they had immense amount of belief in certain British virtues, like, for example, justice and fairness. As a result of which, this group of people who came to be labeled as the moderates, they were of the opinion that the British rule is good for India, but at the same time, there should also be some amount of self-rule. So they were not against the fact that Indians would enjoy a dominion status. By dominion status, it meant that that Indians will still be under the crown, under the rule of the crown, but with certain differences in the sense that through their legislatures, both in the center as well as in the states, the Indians would bring into shape certain policies which ultimately had to be ratified by the British Parliament after only they would be adopted as an act. This rule was in a sort of a vindication of the control of the crown over the affairs in India. Now, these moderates who came into the picture now, they started, they started following a practice which was, one is prayer, second is petition, and third is protest. However, over a period of time, the British were able to granted. However, with certain leaders like Mr. Ramesh Chandra Dutt and to some Mr. Gopal Krishna Gokhale, bringing to the fore the fact that the British were exploiting the Indians and were actually working to their benefit and working for the benefit of the British. There were certain changes which started taking place within Indian society. People were now able to understand that the rule of British was not for the betterment of Indians, but actually it was for the betterment of the English. And over a period of time, with the spread of Western education, which according to uh, Thomas Macaulay was actually a bridge on the basis of which the British could establish in India the rule of the babus, if I can use the word babus, who, who would ensure that the administration which was held by the British would still be in the running. So over a period of time, with the spread of Western education, emphasized on the virtues of freedom spread amongst the Indians. There was there was an earning amongst the young Indians that they should be free. The policies of the British in India was also working at cross purposes to what Queen Victoria had promised in a proclamation in November 1858, because in the urban areas there was lack of employment, as a result of which therefore there was a lot of resentment among the young people, while in the rural areas mostly the various modern methods of for example the adoption of irrigation and other measures were being neglected. So in the rural areas there was increased incidence of this famine, and also the outbreak of diseases like, for example, plague. Put together, the Indians were now most of the Indians were now very much disheartened with the policies which were adopted by the British, and they now started looking out for ways whereby their disappointments could be addressed to. This led to the growth, I'm sorry. This led to the growth of to the process whereby young people started expressing themselves that they were no longer confident of what the moderates were doing. And the entry of certain people, like, for example, Mr. Balagangadhar Tilak, Lala Lajpat Rai, Mr. Bipin Chandra Pal, and Mr. Aurobindo Ghosh, they actually showed a significant change in the mood of the people and also in the mood of the Congress. They highlighted the fact that it is important for Indians to emphasize on self-rule so that the plight of the Indians be addressed to. And self-rule meant that the crown will no longer have any say in the affairs of India. In other words, they were the first group of people who now brought to the fore that the aims of the Indian National Congress was complete independence, that is Swaraj. And when British realized that the Congress was now becoming more of a political uh, uh, you know, become more of a political body, they started dissociating themselves from the Congress. Prior to that, there were many sessions of the Indian National Congress which were attended to by the servants of the British government. But but then from the middle of 1900 and to 1903, the British realized for themselves that the Congress was becoming a body which was now becoming a pain, because they were now insisting on self-rule. Now, what came as a shock to the arm for this group of people, for the young group of people who were now called as the assertive nationalists, was the partition of Bengal, which was announced by Lord Curzon in 1905-1906. From the time that the assertive nationalists came to the fore, there were certain methods which they adopted, and these were called as passive nationalism. Amongst the acts of passive nationalism which were adopted or which were put forth by these assertive nationalists, where number one is the boycott of foreign goods or the adoption of Swadeshi products. Number one. Number two was the boycott of the government schools and the establishment of the national schools. Number three were the addition of government courts and setting up of arbitration courts. These were the methods of which assertive nationalists slowly and slowly wanted to ensure that the the money which was being paid to the British because of the import of goods, because of the running of the government schools and also the government court were slowly and slowly reduced. Once the people realized, it was the assertive nationalists' point of argument that if the British were economically deprived, then automatically it will force them to realize that it's time for them to leave India. Passive nationalism, the passive resistance, which the assertive nationalists followed, were also to be backed by active active resistance, and this active resistance was supported by most of the young people, including the three Pal, that is Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bipin Chandra Pal, Lala Lajpat Rai, along with Sri Aurobindo in Bengal, supported the use of violence. This violence was to be used only sparingly in order to make the British understand that the people of India were no longer going to put up with this sort of a nonsense, if I may use the word. And it would then result in the British officials being thrown into a state of panic, whereby they would either leave India or they would ensure that they would withdraw into their shell, creating a state of anarchy which would ultimately force the British out of India. So the basic difference between the moderates and the assertive nationalists arose from the fact that while the moderates were in favor of the British rule being continued for the betterment of the country, the assertive nationalists, they realized that the British rule was in fact a drain on the Indian people, on the Indian resources, and that independence from the British had to be achieved at the very at the very earliest. Now, the partition of Bengal was certainly a prime mover in this direction, because now Bengal became the center of all political activity, because the people from Bengal, they, the people from Bengal wanted this particular movement to become national, to become a national one. Unlike the moderates led by Mr. Firoz Shah Mehta, Mr. Gopal Krishna Gokhale, who wanted this particular movement to be restricted only and only to Bengal. In 1907, in 1906, during the Indian National Congress session in Calcutta, the compromise candidate of the Indian National Congress, who became the president, was Sri Dadabhai Nauroji, and under the pressure of the assertive nationalists from Bengal, he was forced to adopt four resolutions. One was supporting support. Then number two was supporting the boycott of foreign goods. Number three was supporting the creation of national schools, and number four was the introduction of the national schools. These people, this was against, this was very much against the policies of the moderates, which group was led by Mr. Firoz Shah Mehta. And the Firoz Shah Mehta, during the course of this particular session, was so humiliated by the assertive nationalists from Bengal that he ultimately was forced to leave the session, and he took it upon himself to ensure that the assertive nationalists will no longer be accommodated within the Indian National Congress. Even the moderates from Bengal, like Surendranath Banerjee, also had no say because he was overwhelmed support of the assertive nationalists. Now, as a fallout of this 1906 session in Calcutta, in 1907, the next session was to be held in Surat. As per the rules of, or as per the constitution of the Indian National Congress, the president for that particular session of Indian National Congress could not be belonging to that part of the province. Now, Nagpur at that time was a part of the central province, and in all probability, it was expected that Mr. Bal Gangadhar Tilak from the Bombay province would then be elected as the president of that particular session. In which case, therefore, the assertive nationalists will have their say. This was opposed by a few people, the leading lights of which were Mr. Firoz Shah Mehta and Mr. Gopal Krishna Gokhale, and under their pressure, the venue for the upcoming session of the Indian National Congress was changed from Nagpur to Surat. Surat was the center. It was chosen because Surat was now a part of the Bombay province, which meant therefore that Bal Gangadhar Tilak could not be elected as the president. So prior to the starting of the Congress session in Surat, Mr. Rajbihari Bose, who was a moderate, was put forward as the candidate for the presidency, opposing which was Lala Lajpat Rai from Punjab. Now, during the course of Mr. Rajbihari Bose, as the president-elect ensured that Mr. Bal Gangadhar Tilak was not given an opportunity to put forth his views. This resulted in a lot of pandemonium, and ultimately shoes were hurled at the delegates, which hit many of them, and the police had to intervene to ensure that law and order was restored. To ensure that law and order was restored. So under this particular condition, under this particular situation, the first split of the Indian National Congress into the group of assertive nationalists and the moderates took place during the Surat Congress of December 1906. Of December 1907. By this time already, Mr. Firoz Shah Mehta had drafted a new constitution for the Indian National Congress, whereby it was made very clear that the entry of the assertive nationalists would no longer be allowed into the Indian National Congress. This was one of the reasons why, after his release from Mandalay in 1914, Mr. Bal Gangadhar Tilak found it difficult to get back into the Indian National Congress. It was the demise of Mr. Gopal Krishna Gokhale in February 1915, followed by that of Mr. Firoz Shah Mehta in November 1915, that in the 1916 session of the Indian National Congress, a resolution was adopted at the insistence of Annie Besant that Mr. Tilak should now be readmitted into the Congress. Now let us consider some of the additional methods which were adopted by the assertive nationalists to ensure that Indians became free at the earliest. One of the methods through which they wanted to do that was the establishment of what is called as the secret societies. Many Indians who had traveled abroad or who were ultimately introduced to Western education realized that it was political freedom which was of the utmost importance for Indians to gain prominence abroad. This was coupled with the speech which was delivered by this coupled with the speech delivered by Swami Vivekananda in Chicago in 1898 emphasized the need that for Indians, political freedom was of the utmost importance. Spiritual freedom could only be attained once you are politically free. In fact, Swami Vivekananda, in one of his speeches in Madras in 1901, had clearly emphasized that once we are born, that since we must die once we are born, it is important that we each of us must live with a mission in mind. And for the next 50 years, he called upon the youth in India to adopt a mission that they must work and sacrifice whatever they could, including the supreme sacrifice for the freedom of their motherland. This this clarion call was enough to bring into effect the fact that various young people from all parts of British India started taking an active interest in
Sorry for
furthering
interrupting. Sorry for interrupting, Rajesh.
this.
Actually, if you can place your camera in a good position, actually, your face is not coming. Yeah,
Is
now
it
it's
okay now?
now it's okay.
Okay, okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
So
no, it's
it
okay.
was so. So it was the clarion call given by Swami Vivekananda in 1898 during his speech in Chicago and subsequently in Madras in 1901 that Indians must, for the next 50 years, try to have only one mission in mind, and that is the freedom of their motherland or Bharat Mata. This clarion call was was responded to in the affirmative by a lot many people, including the assertive nationalists, who were now ready to sacrifice their life for the sake of their motherland. This was an this was and this was backed by the fact that most of the Western literature, political literature, started stressing upon the creation of secret societies, on the basis of which the Italian and also the French, they won their independence. So, it was very much important that secret societies came in. Also, all secret societies were formed in the Bombay province. Mr. Vinayak Savarkar played an important role along with his brother to set up the Mitra Seva, or in course of time, sorry, the Mitra, which in course of time became known as Abhinav Bharat. In Bengal, for example, the Mr. Aurobindo Ghosh, he resigned from Baroda in and came down to Calcutta in November of 1905 and set up the Jugantar Samiti. Similarly, by that time in Punjab, under Sardar Ajit Singh and Lala Lajpat Rai, the Bharat Mata Society was formed. So slowly and slowly, the secret societies came into being, and the secret societies for most of the, at the beginning was actually arranged in the, when it was arranged at, was actually working at three levels. The first level was basically a society which was meant for ensuring that the Indians were now putting a lot of emphasis on the physical aspect. That is, they were into bodybuilding, into like for example, because as per the Weapons Act or the Arms Act, Indians were prohibited from possessing a revolver or even a gun. So therefore, they started utilizing the various native arms, like for example the lathis, and and at the same time they were also being told about the virtue of the Indian system, whether it be, for example, for example, the Hindu religion, or for example, what wrong has been done by the various invaders. The second was basically into recruiting for various organizational activities which were mostly taken up during the course of any famine, during the course of floods, or even during an epidemic. It was during the course of these mass activities that people ultimately, the people who headed the secret societies picked up those people who were good at organization and who were also good at sacrificing their interest for the sake of the betterment of others. This group was pick up those members who will ultimately be assigned the role of undertaking any revolutionary activities. And they were given training in the handling of arms, in manufacture of bombs, so on and so forth. And then they were, if required, as a part of the active resistance, they were even asked to carry out any assassination plots. So this is how the secret societies were organized, and also over a period of time, the secret societies realized that they were and at the same time they were also in the need of finances. For the sake of finances, it was decided that many secret the authorities will be resorted to. But over a period of time, it was realized that because of these activities, the secret societies were coming under the gaze of the police. So therefore, they had to be very, very careful in trying to organize their finances. What came as a shot in the arm for this at this juncture, the fact that certain groups of Indians who actually traveled abroad for the sake of their studies and for the sake of of their education and jobs ultimately started taking deep interest in financially backing this group of people in India who were whose only aim was the independence of Bharat Mata. And what came as a big support for the Indians was the establishment of the India House in London by Mr. Sham Prasad Verma. This was this particular facility which was set in London was actually set up for the Indians who were going abroad, especially to London for their higher education. But in course of time, through their through the newsletter, that is the Indian sociologist, they started furthering the facts that Indians should fight for their for their independence. One of the prominent members of Mr. Sham Prasad Verma was one of the prominent members of India House was also Miss Bhikaji Kama. She was a Parsi lady who had gone to London, and there SS, along with Mr. Rana and Mr. Verma, they played a very, very important role in bringing together people who would be interested or who would be dedicating their life to the independence of Bharat. One of these people was Mr. Vinayak Savarkar, who through Mr. Bal Gangadhar Tilak had applied for a scholarship at India House in London. Now, the scholarship at India House in London was given under one condition, that the person who won the scholarship, under no circumstances he will work under the British Empire. And Mr. Savarkar was one of the people who took the lead in agreeing to the fact that under no circumstances he will work for the British. So on that particular promise, or for which he signed a bond, he was ultimately allowed by Mr. Sam Krishna Verma to join the India House in London. And once he joined the India House in London, he ensured that it became a center of all nationalistic activities. He was also supporting the nationalists, especially Bombay, including his brother, Mr. Narayan Rao Savarkar. So this is how the secret societies were functioning both within India as well as abroad, and how all these people, or the assertive nationalists, that they made life difficult for the British in India. But unfortunately, in the history that we are made to read, this is not emphasized because of reasons best known to everyone. And that is one of the reasons why, in my book, Journey to India's Freedom, an Untold Story from 1858 to 1948, I had made an effort to the best of my ability to the, enlist the vital role which was played by these unsung heroes of the Indian freedom movement. And to inform you, I am actually now planning to write a third volume to my book, which will be dedicated only and only to the revolutionaries and how they work together to ensure that Bharat Mata will. I, I now hand over the mic to Mr. Anand to take the proceedings further. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rajabhumekji. Thank you for the insights. So let us now go to our audience if they have any questions. Requesting the audience to kindly write their questions in the chat box, and you can also come directly. Yes, Sunil Kumar is raising his hand. Also, just clarification. There is a comment in the comment section. So Rash Bihari Bose and Rash Bihari Ghosh are two different individuals. Rash Bihari Ghosh was a moderate, and Rash Bihari Bose, as we know, was a revolutionary.
Yes,
So
yes.
so please
I'm
don't.
I- I'm sorry for the oversight.
No. Actually, there was a guy who was having this confusion. So yeah, Sunil Kumar, who is raising
Yeah,
his
am I
hand.
audible, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah, my question was I'm currently reading Arun Shauri's book on Savarkar, and I previously read Vikram Sampath's, uh, should I say, hagiographical work on Savarkar. And in
Yes.
comparison, Mr. Shauri finds faults with everything Sri Savarkar did. Now, my question was, because you talked about revolutionaries, how critical do you think Mr. Savarkar's role was? And is his uh, his personal views and his version of history, are they antithetical to what the current Indian nation state is, or do you think it is also a part of the streams of thought that have contributed to what India is currently?
Yeah, thanks for the thanks for the excellent question, Mr. Sunil. See, basically, I also read a few pages of Mr. Suri's book, and with due respect, I found that it was, it was not worth the name and it was not worth the effort. Simply because of the fact that Mr. Suri from the very beginning is very much biased against Mr. Savarkar. And this is very much reflective of the fact that the distortions in the Indian history, that the distortions in the Indian history have always been encouraged to ensure that the revolutionaries never found a place of mention. With regards to Mr. Savarkar's role as a revolutionary, I think less said the better, because we must all pay tribute to this particular person who spent almost 40 years in incarceration, and then subsequently he took it upon himself to do a lot of work. And mind you, that this social work, which was taken up by Mr. Savarkar during the time that he was there when he was there in the Ratnagiri district, did not even find a mention, simply because of the fact that the Britishers wanted to uphold the the social work which was done by Mr. Gandhi. I hold no grudge against Mr. Gandhi, but certainly it is also pertinent for us to emphasize that Mr. Savarkar also did a lot of work to address the issue of untouchability of the Hindu. Yet this finds hardly any mention in most of the books that we read, where Mr. Savarkar is only and only painted in the black. So Mr. Shuri's book, with due respect to Mr. Arun Shuri, another thing is something which certainly does not warrant any sort of a mention, because it is very well, because from the very first page his bias is absolutely clear, and his bias is only and his bias against Mr. Savarkar doesn't allow him to really paint the character of the Savarkar in a neutral manner.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, even I felt the same thing. But because Mr. Shauri was initially a darling of the nationalist set, that is why I picked up this book. Because now I think he's operating under a grudge. So less said about him, the better. Anyways, thanks
Yeah,
for.
Mr. Snell, I also purchased the book because I was expecting something new, but then after reading a few pages, I realized for myself that it is only a wastage of time to go through the entire because we are not going to find anything anything of significance, because it is the best outlook, if I may put it forward.
Thank you so much, Sunil Kumar, for asking the question. Now we have another question. So, did moderates intentionally, deliberately, or intentionally help the British by sidelining leaders like Tilak, who demanded Swaraj? Because after the Surat session, also, actually, many of the the extremist group of leaders, got hold of the Britishers. So actually, the question is, ki, did they intentionally or deliberately help the British by sidelining the extremist group?
See, if you consider the attitude of Mr. Gandhi, right? Because he was, to the best of my knowledge, after the demise of Mr. Gopal Krishna Gokhale in February of 1915 and Mr. Firoz Shah Mehta in November of 1915, Mr. Gandhi actually epitomized the moderates. And he was in favor, and he, along with Mr. Jinnah, were then the leading lights of the moderates. And the moderates from the very beginning were in favor of a dominion status. And that dominion status always meant that the rule of the British, or for that matter, the rule of the crown, would always, because it was to India's interest. It was in India's interest. So yes, the moderates certainly worked to ensure that the British were in the that
Positions of power.
the British were always favored. Now and you will be surprised to know that it was only the two young congressmen in the form of Mr. Subhash Chandra Bose and Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru who opposed Mr. Gandhi's call for the establishment of a dominion status. And Mr. Gandhi was very angry when Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru, after his return from Europe, during the Madras session of the Indian National Congress in 1927, he put forth the resolution that Indians should now aim for complete independence and not a dominion status. And he was very critical of the fact that Mr. Nehru and Mr. Subhash Bose had actually acted in haste to put forward the fact that the aim of Indian National Congress was independence and not a dominion status. So therefore it is very clear that from the beginning the moderates were in favor of the Britishers, while on the other hand the assertive nationalists were in favor of complete independence.
Since you mentioned Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, so many often there are people who don't put MK Gandhi under the bracket of moderate group. So don't you think this as intellectual dishonesty to not put Gandhi under the bracket of moderates, because be it Gandhi Irwin Pact or round table conferences, or the or opposing the revolutionary groups like Bhagat Singh's Hindustan Socialist Republican Association, or Subhash Chandra Bose Indian National Army, or condemning the Chori Chora incident, etc., etc. So don't you think Gandhi led the moderate group further, like you said, after the demise of Gokhale, but should he be classified more of a moderate or a revolutionary? Matlab, because there is no
No,
reason.
Mr. Gandhi, and Mr. Gandhi for that matter, and even Mr. Jinnah, they were never in support of independence. They were always in support of a creation of a dominion status. Now, Mr. Jinnah wanted a dominion status because he wanted the British to be there to ensure that the Muslims were treated.
Hmm.
So he wanted, so therefore, even if he wanted the British to leave India, he wanted the British to first of all partition India along communal lines and then leave India. On the other hand, Mr. Gandhi was always in favor of a dominion status, and this dominion status, in the dominion status he wanted the Indians, all Indians irrespective of the religion, to live in harmony, which was not possible given the policies which were followed by the Britishers, and also because of the Muslim League. So therefore it is wrong on our part to ever Mr. nationalist. Yes, he might be a nationalist after some, because uh, Mr. Gandhi's belief in the British virtues of justice and fair play certainly took a toll after the Jallianwala Bagh incident. But prior to the Jallianwala Bagh incident, Mr. Gandhi was always in favor of a British rule. And this is highlighted by the fact that Mr. Gandhi received medals during the Boer War, and also for actually helping the British forces against the Africans, or the even against the Africans. So from the beginning, Mr. Gandhi was very clear that he was a faithful servant of the British Empire, who was of the opinion that the British rule was in the interest of India. It was only after the Jallianwala Bagh incident that Mr. Gandhi and Mr. Motilal Nehru that the rule of the British is not going to favor the Indians. But in spite of this particular, Mr. Gandhi always held very close to his heart the dominion status of British India.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rajaji. So there is one question from Sudosh ji. Can you tell us how the moderates treated the secret societies like Anushilan Samiti? Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, can you come again? How the moderates?
How the moderates treated the secret societies like the Anushilan Samiti? Yeah.
No, the moderates were never in support of the secret societies. In fact, the moderates led by Mr. Firoz Shah Mehta, Mr. Gopal Krishna Gokhale, during the course of the Surat session of the Indian National Congress in December
Hmm.
1907, had drafted a constitution whereby the nationalists assertive nationalists will no longer be allowed to come back into the Congress fold. So they were never in support of the assertive nationalists, whether it be Mr. Tilak, Mr. Bipin Chandra Pal, or Mr. Lala Lajpat Rai. So it was very, very clear that and fortunately, it was only the demise of Mr. Gokhale and Mr. Firoz Shah Mehta by 1915 that Mr. Tilak was readmitted into the Congress fold after he was released from the Mandalay prison in 1914. And we must appreciate the role of Miss Annie Besant in ensuring that Mr. Tilak was readmitted into the Congress. So the moderates were never in support of the assertive nationalists.
Were there any, are there any evidences to support the claim that they were uh, indirect support from the moderates, such as financial support, etc., to Avinav Bharat or Anushilan Samiti? Are there any evidences that we can find regarding the moderates indirectly supporting the secret
See,
society?
in both, I mean, even for example, the moderates were very much, which were very much satisfied with the reforms of 1909, which actually brought into existence the concept of separate electorates for the Muslims.
Hmm.
So it was after this particular reforms of 1909 that various moderates like Mr. Suryanal Banerjee from Bengal, they felt that whatever they had to achieve, that is to ensure the adequate representation of the Indians in the various administrative bodies, that whatever they wanted to achieve was achieved and now they should step back. So it was from after 1909, 1910 that the role of the assertive nationalists slowly and slowly came to the fore. But unfortunately, it was Mr. Gandhi who ensured that the assertive nationalists were not given their due place of importance within the Indian National Congress. So that is the reason why you find that assertive nationalists were sidelined. They were never brought to the fore. It was only the followers of Mr. Gandhi and his line of thought who were favored in the Indian National Congress. So in the list of presidents of the Indian National Congress, with the exception of you don't find any assertive nationalists having come to the fore. They were simply not allowed. It was not possible because at that time the Indian National Congress was under the absolute control of Mr. Gandhi and his moderates, which included various people like Mr. Rajendra Prasad, Jawaharlal Nehru, and others.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Rajaji. So since we are running out of time, are there any questions left? You can directly ask to Dr. Rajaji by turning your videos on, or you can, of course, write in the chat box. Yeah, I don't think there are any questions left. So let us wrap this session up. And thank you so much, Dr. Rajaji, for coming and enlightening us. And also thank you to the audience for patient hearing. Uh, Again, we will be back again with another distinguished speaker who will be giving insights upon the freedom struggle that we had. Thank you again, Dr. Rajaji. Thank you for coming. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so
It's
much.
my pleasure. It's my pleasure to address this August gathering. Namaste and Jai Hind.